was a great game. Can't wait to see what they do with the sequel.
The entire world on the brink of war. And you need the one person who could help you put it back together.
After quickly selecting your class, you are thrust immediately into the action as you, your mother, and siblings are in the process of fleeing to the city-state of Kirkwall after the recent destruction of your home village Lothering. You visit Lothering during your journey in the previous game, where you interact with the village before it's wiped out by the Darkspawn. I highly recommend you check that out before playing this. Based on the barren, smoldering landscape lacking in any sort of real, tangible detail, you wouldn't be remiss in asking yourself if this game even takes place in the same world as the first, and not on some alien planet instead. But that's just another tally change to the series' design, with the new stylized visuals, which were put forth with the intended effect of giving the franchise an unmistakable look and feel. Not only were the base visuals changed, but the world's many races also received revamps. Humans and dwarves remain unchanged for the most part, whilst Canari gained a distinct grey complexion instead of horns, giving them an almost demonic look. Elves were they were given a new look also. The dialogue menu from Origins is completely thrown out with this entry, instead being replaced with a wheel where you'll never know exactly what Hawk is going to say. Instead, you're supposed to put faith in the accompanying icons and choose a tone that you think best fits the given situation. Diplomatic, humorous, and aggressive. Better than Mass Effect, not as concise as Alpha Protocols.
You know, you might be just what I'm looking for to solve a little problem I have.
Solve your own problems.
You haven't even heard me out.
Depending on whether or not your chosen class is a mage, you'll either get your brother or your sister as your unogred sibling. Either way, you lose them after the first act of the game, so don't bother getting too attached to them. Aveline, your go-to tank and emotional support. Varric, the dwarf with a heart of gold that Bauer desperately wants you to like. Anders, your squad healer and an avid mage apologist. Over the course of the game, there are hints that he may be mentally handicapped. Powerful stuff. Meryl, an elven blood mage who lives in the ghetto where she belongs. Isabella, an STD-ridden pirate captain who will bring you nothing but misery and pain.
Don't come running to me next time you pick up one of these diseases.
Isn't that the point of magic?
I don't want to know.
Fenris, a former slave with cum seared into his flesh. Ouch. Sebastian, whose DLC saw in heaven, or any footage of him. I got Dragon Age 2 on PC3A's Origin Access program. Little did I know, none of the downloadable content was included in that offer. The other DLC you can get includes one that sets up the main villain of the sequel, and another that stars Felicia Day, and is the equivalent to that Yogscast DLC from that Sonic racing game. Romance makes a return from Origins. Meryl, Isabella, and Aveline were my three options. I ended up going with Aveline. This was really a seminal moment in role-playing video games.
What makes Donnic so special when someone closer to you might be interested?
Nothing. Not a thing. Not rich, not the most skilled. I dare say he's not even the best looking. But he's... something. He's not like the others. Good patrol. I think we're done, and... Hawk, what a surprise. What are you doing here?
Aveline.
Hawk, don't.
You tried. Sort of. Time to open your eyes and see who really cares for you.
Would someone please tell me what's going on?
You're a daft couple of... Oh, take a hint and bend her over a basin, will you?
Captain? I should get back to the barracks.
I thought we were friends.
I'd hoped we were more than that.
Then why do this? I have to fix it. He'll file a complaint, ask for a transfer. You're coming to the barracks to explain why you put him on the spot. Double time, Hawk, or so help me. Maker. Where is Donick? I have to head this off before it goes to the Viscount. Maybe a formal apology. Something that shows the guards they can still trust me.
You made a mess of it. But it's not the end of the world.
How would you know? He wasn't blind to you.
No, but you were.
What are you talking about? Are you?
My apologies, Sirrah Hawk, but I need a moment with the captain.
Guardsman Donick.
Please.
Well. Happy?
Guardsman Donick did not file a complaint. This was all incredibly stupid, and you made it wonderful.
You took it further than I intended. I can't seem to hold you back.
See? If I could say things like that, I wouldn't have needed you.
I'm charming myself into obsolescence.
You? There's no way I can ever repay you, I just... Mwah. Thank you. Hey, can I ask you something? You know me better than anyone. There was never anything there, but... Did you ever wonder about you and I?
That would be all kinds of wrong. You're like a dangerous sister.
I am so glad, because there is just... You've always been a great friend. Shout when you need me, Hawk. I'll always be here for you. Just knock first.
A romance choice, which ends with you being friend-zoned. An interesting and unique detail from my champion of Kirkwall's personal story. For Dragon Age 2, BioWare felt it was necessary to prioritize the console release this time around, doing away with the isometric camera the player was afforded on the PC with Origins, allowing for a quick overview of the battle, enemy and companion placements, and spell trajectory. Maneuvers that were once easily executed in tight spaces are now cumbersome because of this shift in focus. If you're playing on console, these issues most likely won't even enter your mind. In fact, you'll probably say the combat is leaps and bounds ahead of Origins on the console side, in which case I would counter with, no. This is a common misconception. BioWare fooled you into thinking you were playing a game with improved combat, when in fact all they did was make the animations flashier, increase the speed of said animations, and disable auto-attack on the console version of the game, thus giving you the sensation that you were actually doing something you weren't already doing before. An exhilarating addition to the revamped combat is the inclusion of wave-based encounters. Previously, you would enter a fight and be presented with a set number of opponents. You knew exactly what you were up against. Now, once you defeat the first set of enemies, a second will appear, hopefully out of view, and start smacking your shit. Sometimes, if the devs are feeling fancy, they'll have them jump down the side of a wall. Most times, they'll materialize 20 feet in front of you. This is the format I grew to loathe. For the first 6 hours, it's tolerable. By your 10th, you've seen Hawk twirl and slam that staff into the ground so many times fighting wave after wave of thugs that you swear you can feel your limbs atrophy and your brain shutting down. The lengths they go to in artificially padding out the game's playtime by adding random combat encounters into quests that don't need them is mind-numbing. Also, shout out to Phil Spencer and his back and pat team for getting these games on the Xbox One. Made it easy for me to capture footage of the console versions and not have to steal gameplay from someone else's channel. Cheers, bro. Once you're within Kirkwall, you'll learn of the 3 primary quest lines in the game: the Brewing Mage and Templar conflict, a group of stranded Canari who await the reclamation of a lost artifact, and your first task, gathering up enough gold to pay your way into a Deep Roads expedition, so you can acquire even more gold, and set your family up in a nice part of Kirkwall with less crime and less elves. When you've finally accomplished your goal, you'll be intimately familiar with the cramped streets of Kirkwall, and the repeating cave systems divided up at times with bizarre portions of the rock face, clipping through very obviously usable doorways that at other times are able to be removed simply by clicking on them. An interesting design choice to say the least. Jumping slightly ahead, I don't want the cave system to be the only reused environment mentioned. You'll also get to enjoy a sprawling labyrinth of rooms and warehouses in the underbelly of Kirkwall, coastal vistas, and the upper middle class housing system. To ensure the player is constantly enthralled in new quests, the devs came up with a brilliant new way of keeping the player invested in the content. Letters. Instead of actually going and talking to people, you are instead flipping through your mail, and at times even directed to do so, repeatedly even. This keeps you engaged and never confused as to what quests you should actually be pursuing. You are really going to want to pay attention to your mail. You wouldn't want to completely miss recruiting a certain companion because you were losing lucidity from traversing the same stone streets over and over again. Back to the deep roads. We finally made enough gold to get entry. Unfortunately, we were betrayed not too long on our trip and left to die. We make our way back after a quick boss fight. We've gotten our loot and we head to the surface. Our sibling wants to rest, so we leave him behind. Mom's upset by this, has a bit of a freak out. Embarrassing. At the end of the day, it was all worth it.
The compound was not meant to be permanent. There are concerns the Kunari influence is no longer contained.
Was it ever? Kirkwall has tension enough between Templar and Mage, but these Kunari...
In the second act, you're presented with two distinct objectives: dealing with the Kunari threat and putting a stop to a serial killer on the loose. The Kunari side of things is the game's strongest narrative thread, offering you a completely different and alien worldview. Personal freedom is absent, and in its place a strict system wherein each individual is assigned their role and guided by the Kun, the religion of the Kunari, which mandates that all those must follow honor, duty, and to always put forth the greater whole instead of oneself.
Karistan are soldiers. The Kun made it so. They can never vary from that assigned path, never be other than they are meant to be. But they are free to choose within that role, to accept and succeed, or deny and die. Glory is clear and defined. Could not this entire city benefit from that certainty? How else will you know when you have made a real difference?
The Arishok is without a doubt the most compelling antagonist in the entire game. As the story continues to unfold, you learn more about him, his views, and his goal. He's compelling because you understand him. He's a consistent character. He doesn't become corrupted at the last second, so you have a simple reason to fight him, unlike some other schmucks.
Any insight that would help?
Kunari do not abandon a debt. I humbly request clarification from the Arishok.
I have a growing lack of disgust for you. The dwarf imagined the deal for the Gatlock. He invented a task to prove his worth when he has none.
Then we have wrongly inserted ourselves in your affairs. Would you have us kill this dwarf?
Wait, what now?
One of my greatest disappointments with Dragon Age 2 is the absence of a Kunari companion. You're given Anders, who will continually assault you with their thoughts on the plight of the mages and the oppressive rule of the Templars, but you're never given the opportunity to have a running commentary on Kirkwall by one of the series' most interesting aspects. The introduction of them in the first act, and the heavy focus of them in the second, begs for another party member in the same vein as Sten. There are even multiple instances in the game where you meet characters who would be perfect for this role. You're even given the option of asking them to join you, adding insult to injury.
So, interested in some work?
Yes, but not with you.
Why?
I do not work for those with titles. They do not have jobs, they have causes. When you stand for more stand against you.
I would have even taken a bit of contrived writing that would have allowed for you to gain the Arishok as a companion, similar to Logain in Origins. That would have worked. I mean, even the original concept of the game featured a Kunari companion.
We built a kind of a cartoon animatic of what we would like to be in the game. If we were going to really pull out the stops and do whatever we wanted, it's actually very much like the beginning of the game. There's a conversation wheel, there's a dragon airstrike, you're a cool, badass warrior with spiky armor chopping Murlocs in half by the millions.
It was exciting. It was like, wow, man, can we actually pull that off? Can we feel like the party works together to demolish foes rather than having their disparate abilities?
Before I talk about the wrap-up to the Kunari plotline, I should probably take a second to discuss the serial killer crap I mentioned. Early on, you'll be informed of a series of murders connected by white lilies, which the victim receives prior to their demise. After you investigate an initial suspect and discover they're innocent, you'll start a follow-up quest where you're informed that your mother is missing after receiving those same signature flowers. This leads you on a chase through those same repeating environments before finally confronting the killer, and having to bear witness to one of the strangest and most left-field plot resolutions in any Bioware game I've played.
I've searched far and wide to find you again, beloved. And no force on this earth will part us.
Yeah, nothing you do can prevent this from occurring. This is a mandatory quest, and no decision-making or dialogue choices will stop this. Your mother always gets nabbed and turned into some Frankenstein's monster abomination by some random mage. By this point, you've already seen many times over how dangerous and out of control mages can become. We didn't need to get beaten over the head with it like this. I've already played through the game a few times now, and I still don't understand what they were thinking with this one. Hawk's personal plight is essentially over at this point. He's failed to protect his family at the most basic level. The game may as well end here because Hawk no longer has any sort of personal connection to this place or story.
What hope for this city when we fail our own so completely?
At least it can't get worse. Today, anyway. It's pretty late.
You'll pardon me if I don't see the humor in the death of my son.
Things eventually come to a head and chaos breaks out. You encounter Knight Commander Meredith, the leader of the Templars, and Orsino, head of the mages in the city, while on your way to witness the Viscount of Kirkwall being beheaded.
You feed and complain only when your meal is interrupted. You do not look up. You do not see that the grass is bare. All you leave in your wake is misery. You are blind. I will make you see.
And you're finally forced to confront the Aeroshock. I should also make clear at this point that you've discovered that Isabella is responsible for stealing a Qunari relic and stranding them here this entire time. If you have a high enough affinity with her, or you're HIV positive, she'll return with the relic, in which case you can hand her over to the Qunari, allowing you to enjoy one of the few happy quest endings in the game.
Take her and go.
Most wise.
No! Hawk, you bastard! I came back to help you!
You are helping.
And with that, Hawk is finally named Champion of Kirkwall. Act 3. The final stretch of the storyline focuses on the power dynamic between the Templars and mages. Things progress at a breakneck pace where you're going around checking on how the local blood mages are doing and putting them in their place. Why Hawk is even doing any of this continues to be a mystery. Actually, this is the perfect time to bring up the complete nonsense of the game's story if you're playing as a mage. In a city fraught with conflict and paranoia over whether or not mages are even capable of not giving in to the temptation of blood magic, or worse, outright being possessed and becoming abominations, you're going to be experiencing some pretty substantial hand-waving when you go down this path. Whenever your status as a mage is even acknowledged by any of the Templar characters during quests, it's always brushed off as, "Oh, it's you, don't worry about it." This even extends to Meredith, the most fanatical of the Templars.
I'll do whatever it takes to defend my home.
Good. I'll overlook your own use of magic. For the moment.
It's just sloppy, especially when your own sister gets taken to the Circle at the end of Act 1 if you choose to leave her at home and not take her on your expedition. Hell, Hawk is even a mage on the front cover of the game and in the CGI trailer. You would think they would have devoted a plotline to such a noticeable gap in the present storytelling. Interestingly enough, there were plans to include something along these lines, but it ended up getting cut due to time constraints.
I think we actually had, if you were a mage, there were supposed to be some mage-specific plots that would do it, like why do Meredith's Templars not come after you as a mage in the early part of the game? There was a long plot that sort of explained that, but that got cut. A lot of things got cut in Dragon Age 2, so.
Tragic stuff. A phrase I would personally extend to the game as a whole. No matter what you do or choose, you're always going to be led to this point. Andrew says he's had enough and he detonates the thermite he placed in the Chantry the night before. This action has an adverse effect on the health of all nearby mages, excluding you if you decide to be a stooge and join up with the Templars. They definitely won't kill you after they've dealt with everyone else. Once again, no matter who you decide to throw your hat in with, you're still going to be forced to fight both Meredith and Orsino. The Orsino cutscene is particularly amusing since not 15 minutes ago he tried getting #NoLaMages trending and suddenly decides to resort to blood magic and turn himself into a giant flesh mound. He does this whether or not you join his side in the final battle. It's total nonsense.
Meredith expects blood magic? Then I will give it to her. Make her help us all.
The Maker has guided us here to end your evil, Orsino.
The Maker has guided you all to your deaths!
I want him dead!
Enough! This is not what the Order stands for. Knight Commander, step down. I relieve you of your command.
My own Knight Captain falls prey to the influence of blood magic. You all have. You're all weak. Allowing the mages to control your minds, to turn you against me. But I don't need any of you. I will protect this city myself. All of you! I want him dead!
Enough! This is not what the Order stands for. Knight Commander, step down. I relieve you of your command.
My own Knight Captain falls prey to the influence of blood magic. You all have. You're all weak. Allowing the mages to control your minds, to turn you against me. But I don't need any of you. I will protect this city myself. Maker, aid your humble servant!
After the dust clears and Hawk and his companions stand triumphant, you may be asking yourself, what was the point of that? Was that the legendary story of Hawk that needed to be told with Dragon Age 2? If you look back closely, Hawk ultimately accomplished nothing outside of getting some sweet loot back in the Deep Roads and a nice pad in Hightown. You deal with the Airshot and the remaining Qunari right before Meredith and the Templars would have obliterated them. Anders destroys the Chantry and kicks this whole Templars versus Mage battle off while you stand there a gap, a passive onlooker irrelevant to the plot moving forward. And instead of just sitting back and letting Meredith and Orsino kill each other, Hawk decides to just get in the middle of things and kill them both himself.
It's not enough that they make innocents suffer. No! We must also have insult added to injury. Spare the mages. Give them freedom. And they would use it to tear down everything we hold dear. No. No, it cannot be allowed. I will stop it. Do you hear me, champion? I will defeat you.
I'm also curious as to why we never got any sort of Landsmeet-esque moments during the course of this game. Hawk never uses their political clout to accomplish anything for themselves. Rather, they are routinely nudged into going on quests because someone's got to do it, and it might as well be Hawk. He's the champion of the people after all. Or at least I think that's what they were going for. I despise Dragon Age 2. I have nothing but eternal contempt for its existence. BioWare had a beautiful kernel with Origins, and instead of it sprouting into a glorious tree, where each metaphorical branch would bring players to new lands, stories, characters, and adventures, a fucking weed sprouted in its place. In fact, now the entire lawn is covered in weeds. There's crabgrass, and they forgot to water, so the whole area looks like a complete fucking disaster. It's so bad, in fact, that people are talking behind our backs, and it's bringing the entire neighborhood's property value down as a result. I wish this shit got too human. If you somehow haven't played Dragon Age Origins, go pick it up on GOG for $20. And if you haven't played Dragon Age 2, I have no idea why you're watching this video. I recommend you avoid it and pretend the series ended at Origins. Thanks.